President Trump's legal team is feuding with the Mueller investigation over the terms of a possible interview with the president. Last night on Hannity, Rudy Giuliani said the aggressiveness of the Mueller team would backfire on them.
Where's the sense of justice on the part of Mueller, on the part of the Justice Department? People who hate Trump were put into primary positions of power. That has completely tainted this investigation. The real story here is not that this case isn't going to fizzle. It's going to blow up on them.
Alan Dershowitz is a retired Harvard Law School professor and the author of The Case Against Impeaching Trump. And he joins us. Professor, is this interview with the president going to happen, and should it happen?
It won't happen. I think what's going to happen is Giuliani will make Mueller an offer he can't accept, to paraphrase The Godfather. And that way, Trump will be able to say, look, I wanted to testify, but it was Mueller who turned down a reasonable request by our attorney. Look, no lawyer would ever allow a client to testify under these circumstances. All they have to do is ask him one question. Did you know about the meeting in the Trump Tower with your son? If he answers that question truthfully, that he didn't know, if that in fact is the truth, he could still be charged with perjury, lying to a government official, because we have Michael Cohen who says he did know. And you never allow your client to say something that could be contradicted by another witness, because the prosecution can choose to believe that other witness.
If you had President Trump as a client, though, he's a very gregarious guy who is quite happy to sit down and talk and chit-chat to anybody, and thinks that as long as he's just like straightforward and says what he thinks, everything will be fine. Often, from a lawyer's point of view, that's the worst kind of client to have, isn't it?
Yes, and I would certainly, I'm not his lawyer, obviously, but I would advise him to speak to the public on television, say what he wants to say, write his tweets, although I don't think he helps himself by some of his tweets. But under no circumstances put yourself in a position where you can be charged with perjury or lying to a federal official. And if he doesn't believe me, he should make two phone calls, one to Martha Stewart, who went to jail because of what she said to prosecutors, and the other to Bill Clinton, who was impeached because of what he said in an interview under oath. And so I think every responsible lawyer would say to him, you should not either testify or be interviewed. Look, I once gave him advice on television. I said, I have 4 pieces of advice. Don't fire, don't pardon, don't tweet, and don't testify. I
want to ask you about Rudy's other point, which is the hyper-partisan nature of what's been happening. And with reference to this Bruce Orr guy in the Justice Department and his 60 contacts, at least with Christopher Steele, the MI6 agent who was basically the dirty tricks operative for the Democrat Party. You know as well as I do that impartiality is the essence of justice. A county court judge can't have a bunch of communications with the plaintiff and not with the defendant. That's a big no-no. How come Bruce Orr at the Department of Justice doesn't know you can't talk to one political party continuously through the height of a campaign?
Of course, there's a difference between a judge and a prosecutor. Prosecutors are allowed to talk to people. Also, I don't believe that Mueller and his team care about whether the Democrats win or the Republicans win. They're not partisan in that sense. I think they are zealous, some would say overzealous prosecutors. Because he's special counsel, he has a target on the back of the president and others. If this case were handled by ordinary U.S. attorneys and they came back after a year or 2 years without indicting anybody, it wouldn't be a story. Nobody would know. But when a special counsel is given a target and he fails to indict, he's been a failure. And that's why I'm so strongly opposed to special counsel, except in the most extraordinary circumstances, which weren't met in this case.
You're absolutely right about that, Professor, in terms of the special counsel's office. I hope we get rid of them. Thanks a lot.